Native people in this hemisphere to protect their ways of living, their languages and their cultures for 523 years now of genocide.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on over 30 cable stations from Vermont to New York City, on the internet at thestruggle.org, our YouTube channel, Struggle Video Media. October 12th is traditionally celebrated in the U.S. as Columbus Day, but as Native American complaints about Columbus' unbelievable brutality have become better known, things are changing. A number of cities have given up mention of Columbus Day. The schools in Bridgeport, Connecticut now celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, as does the entire state of Alaska. At the Yale campus, there was a two-day celebration.
Now that was Connor, get the photo!
Save my eyes.
You don't need the camera.
Can you take a photo?
Okay, Kodi, for years this has been celebrated as Columbus Day, but you have quite a different take on it in your group here.
Yeah. Yes, so today we're celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day, sort of as a like a protest day to Columbus Day, but also a celebration of Indigenous people and strength and resilience and the ability of Native people in this hemisphere to protect their ways of living, their languages and their cultures for 523 years now of genocide. So we're out here, we have Blue Feather Drum Group, the Association of Native Americans at Yale, and other representatives at the Yale Native American Cultural Center, and other members of the Yale community. We brought them out here, we sang some songs, we sang some round dances, which is like a sort of contemporary, so you could think of it as like a pop song genre amongst like Indian people, I suppose.
What is your own nation?
Yeah, so I'm Navajo, or Dene. And so Navajo Nation is in New Mexico and Arizona mostly, and then also partially in Utah and Colorado. So I was actually born in Gallup, New Mexico, which is on the reservation, or slightly off the reservation. But my mom grew up in Crown Point, New Mexico, which is on the reservation.
What reactions are you getting from non-native indigenous people?
Yeah, so far it's been great. People have been really about it. They've been coming out, they joined our dances, you know, everyone is always responds positively to our songs, which I think is just the most amazing thing. People come up to us and they say like, hey guys, like that was amazing, you gave us goosebumps, like we're really down, like we want to come to the center and like learn more. And so I think, you know, Blue Feather is a really good way for the natives at Yale to sort of interact with the community and sort of like bring people in and educate.
Now you're the president of Blue Feather?
Yeah, recently elected.
Tell us about Blue Feather a little more.
Sure, so Blue Feather Drum Group was founded at Yale University about 3 years ago by Rita Derabobroff and Sebastin Medina-Tabac, who in their freshman year wanted to share their cultures with each other, and they wanted to learn some songs, some powwow songs. And so they didn't have any drums at the time, and so they went to a music practice room and they said like, hey, what do you know? And what do you? And like, I know a few songs. Like, what do you know? So what they ended up using was a leather piano bench. It was actually what they could find because they didn't have any drums, but that was the thing that sounded most like a powwow drum. So it started out with just those two guys, and over time, more and more community members like came in and became a part of it. And so now we have like many drums. We recently got like a big powwow drum that we use, and so it's like really coming along, and it's becoming like a really popular thing on campus. Like if you ask like a typical average Yaley, I think they probably know Blue Feather Drum Group.
I understand that you're going to perform at the Gandhi Peace Award where Tom Goldtooth is getting an award.
Yep. So that was a really deep honor. Kelly Fayard, who's our new dean of the Cultural Center, reached out to me a few weeks ago and asked if we would perform. She was like, oh, like, I hope that you guys would be willing to do this, and I was like, of course, like it's a tremendous honor. Tom Goldtooth is a very important person in the indigenous circles. So yeah, no, that's going to be the next big thing I think on our horizons. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Haylee, you have a special connection to this, being from Hawaii. Are you Native Hawaiian?
Yeah, I'm Native Hawaiian.
And what does that mean? You know, a lot of people in America have no idea.
Yeah, so being Hawaiian isn't the same thing as being like Californian or Texan. It's not like anybody that was born or lives in Hawaii now is Hawaiian. Native Hawaiian refers to the people that were there first, the indigenous people, which is why I'm here for Indigenous Peoples Day and do a lot of work in the Yale Native American Cultural Center, because like Native American is kind of I guess at Yale we're trying to like broaden it to more than just Native North America, so finding solidarity with First Nations, Native people in Canada, with Indigenous people of South America, and with Pacific Islanders, Hawaiian, Samoan, Tahitian.
And Hawaii once was an independent country, isn't it?
Yeah, it was an independent nation and it was overthrown. Our queen was overthrown in the late 18th century. But before that, it was pretty much colonized. So it was colonized and then became a state in the 60s, I think. But a similar thing happened that didn't in North America with first Western contact, bringing a lot of disease over and violence, and the people were almost decimated and killed. But over time, you know, resilience and the Native people have like tried to revive a culture that was like actively I'm so sorry.
For people, is there a feeling that people are discriminated against or
yeah, definitely
oppressed for being Native Hawaiian?
So it's definitely not the way it was in the past, where like it was literally illegal to speak the Hawaiian language or do what people now know as hula, like traditional Hawaiian dance. And in the 70s or so, there was a Hawaiian Renaissance that was like a revitalization of culture and language. And today there are like Hawaiian immersion schools where the students actually have to speak Hawaiian all day, and there are different halaus. These are hula troops. So we've come definitely a long way, and the remnants exist more in like socioeconomic divides between Hawaiian people and the rest of the people who live in Hawaii, which is like, you know, painfully ironic since like we're being made strangers in our own land. So there's like a hierarchy of like white people, and then Asian American people, and then Hawaiian people are at the very bottom of the socioeconomic ladder in Hawaii. Tourism makes cost of living incredibly high, and the people that profit off of this are not Native people, but white people appropriating the culture with tourism and like profiting off something that's not theirs.
Sebi, what do you think of the action that you did here today at Yale?
Well, the purpose of what we did here today is, you know, the Native community at Yale is extremely strong. There's a ton of energy, a ton of passion, thoughtfulness coming from the Native students here, and forming a really united community. Now we're based in a cultural center. We have resources. We even have a handful of Native Studies classes, even though we need more. So that positions us very well to mobilize as a Native community in the city of New Haven, which doesn't have a very active or organized Native community presently. So what we're trying to do is expand the scope of Native organizing by having this Indigenous Peoples Day rally. Indigenous Peoples Day is a nationwide movement to abolish Columbus Day. As we know, the cruelty, genocide, rape, slavery that happened in the Americas is the direct legacy of Christopher Columbus and his invasion of the Caribbean. So what we're doing is fighting that legacy, showing people that we're still here. Our continued existence, our pride, our survival, and our community building is radical on this continent. And it shouldn't be, you know? But it is. And so that's why we're here. That's what we're here doing, is showing people that we're still alive and united.
How many Native Americans would you say are at Yale as undergraduates?
Well, it's hard to tell because a lot of people identify as Native. A lot of people come from Native communities. Not all of them are very involved, so it's hard to, you know, and not all of them are very connected to their identities. So it's kind of hard to tell. But as far as who people I consider our community, the active core people, say we have like 40 to 50, which for an Ivy League university, means we're growing. It's never enough. I'm never going to say we're happy with how many Native students there are here. But we're growing, and I'd say we're up there with some of the other Native programs on the East Coast. And that's because of the work and dedication of the students. The students are recruiting each other. The students are demanding more classes. The students demanded the space. And we do stuff like this. So Native students are very empowered here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, wait, and now seriously, fist up. Fist up.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you. All right.
That same day, Kēhaulani Kauanui, a professor at Wesleyan University, spoke at Yale's Native American Cultural Center on the idea of discovery, the notion that Christians have the right to conquer non-Christian lands, an idea that started with the papacy and has never been repudiated by that institution. We'll have her talk at another show, but today we're going to just have her remarks on the connections between Indigenous Americans and Palestinians. She was asked about the keffiyeh she often wears in the Q&A following her talk, and then larger questions about the relations of Indigenous in America and in Palestine.
I do wear the keffiyeh, and I also really make a point to be really forthright. I make a point of wearing it, especially to Native events, because I do see the struggles as linked. And I also think it's about breaking the taboo. And again, this is the work of anti-normalization, to not pretend everything's okay just because Israel is the U.S. client state, right? And to also not be scared to speak out in solidarity with Palestinians, scared of the smear tactics that people will use to silence people standing in solidarity with Palestine, accusations of anti-Semitism. That's so insulting to all the anti-Zionist Jewish activists who are so involved in this work, right? And also, if you didn't get it from this paper is about Christian Zionism, right? What I just described in answer to your question, that is Christian Zionism, which undergirds manifest destiny. This is about claims of the divine right to authorize people to take other people's homelands. And so for me, it's anti-Zionist work that's part of anti-normalization. And I was going to say at the beginning, but now I have a chance. I had missed it at the beginning. I was going to say that, when I give talks at campuses, I often get invited by colleagues, and I feel really privileged to be able to have that mobility and get those opportunities to speak. But what I enjoy so much when I go to campuses is when I'm invited by students to talk. And I'm primarily invited by either SJP or Native student groups, right? Those are the groups that are inviting me. It's SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine, or Native organizations on campus such as yourselves. And at Smith, they did a joint event, which was great. And that's what I would love to see happen across campus more, is to make the connections. But also for me, there's another element to it. It's not just about raising awareness about the Israeli state violence against Palestinians, not just in the occupied territories, but also in the 48, also in 48 Israel. And this is a struggle that is not just about occupation, but also about settler colonialism. And that's why I appreciate you saying the work of decolonization. Because one can say deoccupy or end the occupation and still maintain the Zionist stance. That's different when you start to really get at the core issue of what's going on. And if you look at the work for BDS, boycott, divest, and sanctions, the three prongs, it's a global call to boycott and divest and sanction Israel. And it is premised on three principles of international law, which you can, if you can't figure out, I'm obsessed with international law. But, it's to end the ongoing colonization of all Palestinian lands, and to honor the right of return that's already enshrined by a UN resolution, and also to end the occupation and the apartheid wall. But within the colonization part, the one of the three prongs says it gets at the apartheid system because you have so many different laws that apply to Palestinians, not just in the territories, but in 48 Israel. So BDS is where that's at, and I think that that's one of the issues that I'm excited to share when I meet with Native students. But as I said, it's not just one direction. One of the things that I'm really invested in terms of doing BDS work while living in Indian country, is thinking through the ethics of the activist work we do to make sure that we're not calling out one country without challenging U.S. settler colonial domination here. Right? People love to say, well, what about China and Iran and Syria? Well, okay, do we have study abroad programs to Syria right now? Right? But, we can look at all the human rights abuses at different countries, but rarely do they want to talk about the U.S. So that's the accusation of singling out Israel, right? Which already isn't happening. It makes it sound like a zero-sum game. Well, we should be against human rights abuses anywhere in the globe, everywhere in the globe. But the other part is, what about the anti-normalization work of the U.S.? And the only times I really hear people, Zionist defenders of Israel, mention it is to justify U.S. colonial domination over tribes. They'll say, well, you're living on stolen Indian land, so how hypocritical of you. And it's like, no, we are. So what are we going to do about that? What does that actually look like? Let's actually have a conversation about what it means to do that work here in Indian country. So thank you for asking. Mahalo.
This Indigenous American will be receiving an important honor on Friday, October 30th. He's Tom Goldtooth, and he and Kathy Kelly will be receiving the Gandhi Peace Award, given out annually by Promoting Enduring Peace since 1960. It will be presented at the United Church on the Green in New Haven at 7 p.m. on the 30th. Goldtooth is an international figure in the environmental movement. In many ways, the indigenous are leaders in the climate fight as they naturally defend their land from those who would rip it up for minerals. See peace.org for more information. Several weeks ago, we presented a talk by Bassem Tamimi of Nabi Saleh. I wanted to show some of the things he said in the Q&A. If some of your friends or workmates still don't get it, still don't understand why Palestinians are driven to resistance or desperate action, have them consider what he says. In his talk, he mentioned skunk, and I asked him to elaborate.
Skunk water is a chemical water with a bad smell, which remain on the ground for 2 weeks. You can't smell it. It's kind of like the skunk. And they use it every Friday, and they come and shoot it inside the houses. And it's remained for a long period of time. They shoot it inside the houses, which make all furniture loses, and use this, and so a lot of people burn their furniture. It's make cancer when it comes to the body, a lot of times. For example, they shoot it on my wife 1 week. It's remain in her hair for 2 or 3 weeks. You can't smell it. This is the skunk water, and they target also the tanks for storing water to make it more difficult. Yeah.
Here is some of the video he showed us.
This is the skunk water.
And it breaks the windows.
It's broke the windows, yes. You see this? It broke the house windows and inside.
Here's that video directly from Middle East Monitor. noticed there was nothing going on. The Israeli soldiers were not breaking up a mob of Palestinians with guns, knives, or even stones. Nothing was happening, and yet these soldiers were breaking windows and spraying this horrible skunk right into people's homes. Now, it was Tamimi's son who an Israeli soldier grabbed by the throat and who women in the family later liberated in a video that went viral. I asked Bassem Tamimi about rumors that the soldiers had come back to his family later for vengeance.
They start threatening us on the internet, and the culture minister of Israeli government say we must kill this child who beat the soldier. This is the culture minister. The defense minister say we must solve the women issue in Nabi Saleh. A lot of people, and there is the Israeli police talking about arresting the women. We have a lot of threatening through the group paid the price for the settler, and a lot of terrorist group, and we are under stress because of all of that. I am here, but every night I'm on the phone calling to see they arrest somebody or not. Since that day, they arrest 6 persons from Nabi Saleh. Since that week.
Last week we showed an interview with Dr. Mazin Qumsiyeh about the latest upsurge on the West Bank. That same morning in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in front of the Harvard Museum of Natural History, we talked about a new museum that he heads, the Palestinian Museum of Natural History. I'm speaking to Dr. Mazin Qumsiyeh. He's director of the new Palestine Museum of Natural History. We're going to get a short bit of information about it. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on your show.
So we're here in front of a Harvard Natural History Museum. You had a quick stop there. Tell us about what is happening in Palestine. Where is it for starting off?
Yeah. So what we are aiming to do is to associate Bassem University with developments of science and technology in a way that helps our students reach the highest level of education. Of course, we do not aspire to have a museum like Harvard, which has been around for hundreds of years. What we want to do is something modest that helps the students understand the importance of environmental conservation, the importance of biodiversity, and more important, develop studies and programs that deal with how humans affect the environment, like Israeli settlements, for example, that are dumping their toxic waste on Palestinian valleys, or the wall that Israel is building and how it impacts the biodiversity of land mammals and things like that. So that's the aim of the project. It basically focuses around 3 points: research, education, and conservation.
And it's located now where?
It's located on the grounds in Bethlehem at a place called Mar Andrea. It's about 4 acres of land that we're developing into a botanical garden with indigenous herbs and plants, but also with a center to test and research permaculture, aquaculture projects that are simple and that cost little, and then transfer this technology to the farmers to help them have sustainable development, but without using insecticides, pesticides, or other harmful measures that harm the biodiversity.
Now, compared to students in the United States, I would assume Palestinian students have a much more difficult time of it.
Yes, of course, we face many challenges as people under occupation, colonization, with our land being taken over, our water and other natural resources being taken over. leaving us very little. But that's precisely why we need to become inventive and become more focused on how we can use maximum use of the limited resources that we have, but without destroying these resources, affecting, for example, renewable energy instead of electricity, solar power, wind power, permaculture, as I mentioned, or organic agriculture in general. These are the kinds of projects that we have to develop locally to allow people to continue to survive, to continue to live in that troubled parts of the world, but without harming the environment.
How is climate change affecting things over there?
Huge impact. We have over 2 to 4 degrees centigrade already increase in annual average temperatures, and rainfall is expected to drop on average between 20 to 25% over the next 20 years. So we are expecting major ecological changes due to global warming, which is a human impact. And we have a responsibility also as Palestinians, as human beings, everywhere actually, to do something about that, reducing our carbon footprint, reusing renewable energy, and so forth.
Last question, your training was in the United States?
Yes, I got my PhD in Texas and did some medical genetics training in Tennessee, and I worked at places like Duke and Yale universities. I gave up all that good life, went back to Palestine in 2008, and I think we are making a difference on the local level in an area that's highly in need of people like me and others trained in environmental biodiversity and other issues.
Last question, the website of your museum?
The website is palestinenature.org.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As we go into our credits and our Latuf cartoon, I thank you for watching. This is Stanley Heller for The Struggle.